Passionate, driven, enthusiastic, euphoric. This is who we are as entrepreneurs. But how we leverage these incredible attributes to dream and build businesses that scale and grow is what this podcast is all about. Hello, I'm attorneypreneur Josh Brown, and welcome to Franchise Euphoria. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Franchise Euphoria. Josh Brown here, thrilled to be back again. Last day of at least last day of the work week for National Small Business Week. So thrilled to do another episode here today. Today, we're going to talk about something that I get asked about a lot, and that is, should you franchise your business or remain independent and grow independently? Wow, that's a doozy. That's certainly a doozy of a question, but we're going to dive into that question today. And I'm going to give you a few things to think about if you find yourself in that situation. You know, as you are at a point where you've started a business or you're growing a business, and perhaps you've thought about franchising. Maybe you've had customers who have come to you and approached you about opening up other locations or thinking about the franchise model. Or perhaps you're just thinking about that as maybe a start to an exit strategy to where you can continue to grow your business and take yourself more outside of the business. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why people franchise a business, but there's all sorts of reasons why people don't franchise their business. I happened to be at a restaurant the other day where I know the owners, and this is their second location, and it's a really, really great model. It's a very niche model in the restaurant space. And I was talking to the owner and I said, have you ever thought about franchising this? And he said, I'm not going to franchise it. And I said, why? Just curious. That's fine, but I'm curious why. And he said, I think I'd be a terrible franchisor. I don't think I'd be able to provide the type of support that a good franchise system needs and deserves. And I said, wow, that's really, really great that you know that about yourself, because there's a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs who simply look at franchising as a growth mechanism and don't stop to think about how it's going to change or impact their relationship to the business. So, that was a very clear example to me of somebody who had clarity around that issue, which is very, very, very important. And so he's just going to continue to grow it in a independent way and continue to own each of the locations and get good management in place for that. Well, what are some of the things that you need to be thinking about if you aren't as clear as that? If maybe you have questions, maybe you're really contemplating franchising your business. Today, we're going to go over the who, what, when, where, and why that applies to this question. We touched a little bit just a couple moments ago on the who, and that is you have to really take a step back and ask who you want to be as a business and who you are as a business owner. One thing that people oftentimes don't think about when they grow their business or when they turn their business into a franchise is that fundamentally changes your role as the CEO, as the entrepreneur. Now you're no longer really concerned with your one location. Now you're concerned over your overall brand and how you're going to go and grow the brand and how you're going to be providing services and support for your soon to be franchisees. It's a very, very different role from what you might have been in just your day-to-day workings of your business. And you must give some thought to that and really ask yourself, is that going to make you happy? I mean, is that going to be something that you look forward to in terms of your new role as you become a franchisor? Number two, looking at the what. What are you going to become? What is it that you're aspiring to grow to? it's really one of those questions where you'd say, wow, well, of course, everybody would think about that. But I'm often blown away by the number of folks who want to franchise a business and they have no idea really what they want to do with the franchise business. They just like the idea of replicating it and growing it. Well, I think it takes some thought and some forethought to decide, what do you want your business to become? Bigger's not always better. There's a book that I recently read. I think it was called Small Giants, and it really hits on that point where it speaks to the idea that, bigger's not always better. Sometimes some of the best companies in the world are a little bit smaller, more nimble, and more focused, as opposed to large conglomerate public companies, or even if they're not public, large overhead heavy companies. So, there's certainly benefits and detriments to both sides, but you really need to be thinking about what it is that you hope to become with your business. And that can really help you decide whether or not you want to franchise or just continue to grow in an independent way. Number 3 would be when. When do you want to do it? When is the right time? I get contacted by people who are at various stages of their business growth, and sometimes they have one location and they run a very good location, one outlet, and they want to think about franchising and growing from there. And most of the time, I will tell them to open up a second location first. There's a very big difference between running one location and then running 2 locations. What you find out when you do that is where the gaps are and where you are truly needed versus where a business can run without you. And that's really, really important in the franchise segment, of course, because the whole idea is that you're going to be replicating yourself through growth. And if you're needed at both places, we all know you can't be in more than one place at one time. So very, very important to understand when is the right time to do it. I typically subscribe to the notion that you should have multiple locations open and running efficiently before you would consider franchising your business. But of course, there are exceptions. There are exceptions to that. Number 4 is where. Where should you franchise? It's interesting to me. There's several businesses that I'm working with right now that we're working and turning them into a franchise, and there's a strategy that we're working on in terms of where they should focus their growth. I subscribe to the model that you should really try to dominate your 100-mile radius around your original locations first, and then look to going outside of that. But it's a very, very important consideration when you're determining whether or not you're going to franchise or grow independently, because oftentimes when you franchise your business, you will get inquiries from people all over the place. And so you have to have sort of a clear understanding of what your own goals are to be able to say, okay, if I've got a business in Indiana and somebody calls me from California, I don't necessarily want to open up my second location in California. I want to open it up 20 miles away from my first location in Indiana. So you have to have clarity around that issue. And when you get into the franchise model, if you have a good concept, you will have people from all over the place reaching out to you, where they might be persuasive in trying to get you to open up locations outside of your comfort zone. So you definitely need to be asking the question where it is you want to go. And again, my sort of rule of thumb is, grow within your own backyard, because what's going to happen is you're going to run into problems and you're going to tweak things. And it's much, much easier to tweak things and to fix things when they're in your own backyard, where you can drive 20 minutes to the next location, as opposed to having to hop on a plane and fly to California or someplace far away. So I just think from a logistics perspective, it makes sense that as you're fine tuning your model and as you're growing your model, you want to try to do it in a very concentrated geographic area to start and then expand out from there. Number 5, and finally, is the why. Why are you franchising your business? Is this something that you've always wanted to do? Or are you now feeling the economic pressure of having to expand and grow? Is that something that oftentimes can point to a deficiency in your business where maybe the model you have, there isn't a big enough market for it. So now you're looking for ways to kind of grow fast, but not grow smart. So I think you really have to have a clear understanding of what your why is as a business. What is your overall mission? What is your overall goal? And is franchising something that's going to fit into that goal? A lot of times when people ask themselves and think about what their why is, they really want to be in charge and be in total control. And if you want to be in total control, then franchising is not going to be the best option for you, because the hallmark of franchising is that you hire a franchisee and they go and hire the employees and they follow your system, but you're not controlling those employees. You're not controlling how they hire and so forth. Some people really, really like that. Some people want to be that involved. And if that's the case, then I think you want to give a long, hard look at whether or not franchising is going to be the right thing for you. So I think it's very, very important to understand these things before you jump into a franchise system. And of course, what I always tell people is, franchising is sort of the ultimate licensing structure. I mean, you're licensing everything about your business over to somebody else to run it. If you're unsure whether franchising is going to be the right move for you, then take baby steps. Perhaps maybe you want to look at just a licensing structure, to start. Maybe you want to license some of your goods or services or package them in a certain way, but you don't want to go into the full franchise model. So there's lots of considerations when thinking about whether or not you want to franchise your business or remain independent. But I would encourage you to go through the exercise of asking yourself the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why, and really take some time to reflect on that and ask some people who are close to you, who are close to your business, who understand what you do, and see if they see it from the same lens that you do, because sometimes people can see from the outside what you can't see within. So I think these are all important considerations, and I would challenge you to go through the process of figuring out the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why before you make a decision on whether or not you want to grow through a franchise structure. Well, gosh, thanks again. This has been a fun episode, and really enjoyed talking about this topic. And certainly if you have questions, thoughts, love to hear from you. You can always reach out to me at josh@indyfranchiselaw.com. That's Josh at indyfranchiselaw.com. And thank you again for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. We'll see you again next week for a brand new episode. Thanks again. Bye. Hopefully this was helpful for you today. If you are in the market for a franchise, I would highly encourage you to check out my free ebook, which is What to Know Before You Buy a Franchise. You can head over to my website at that's INDY franchiselaw.com and download it there for free. And let me know what you think. If you're enjoying this podcast, if you're enjoying the value that you're getting from this podcast, I'd also invite you to go to iTunes and provide me with a rating and review. It always helps for visibility on the podcast. So thank you so much for your support, and hope this episode was helpful to you.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.